Hello, and welcome to episode 98 of the Airship27 Podcast. I'm your host, Chief Engineer Rob Davis, here alongside co-host Captain Ron Fortier. Hey, Ron.
Hey, Rob. 98. Whoa.
Yeah.
Two more for the big 100.
Well, if we'd have been able to get two more in last year, we'd have been better off, but it is what it is.
Well, as we're going to show all our loyal airmen, we were kind of busy.
Just a little. Just a little, yes.
And I find it ironic that happens all along about the same time we're talking about the closing operations in the last couple of years.
Well, that's par for the course, as they say.
Oh, yeah. Things dovetail into one another. You keeping warm out there in Missouri?
Yeah, actually, my studio's in the upper portion of the house. If you'll notice, I'm rolling up my sleeves because it's actually kind of warm in this room. Trying to heat the rest of the house, all the heat comes up here. So, yeah. So I'm pretty toasty, but it is like 23 is the high for today. So, and there's about, depending on where you stand, there's anywhere from this much snow on the ground to this much snow on the ground because it's drifted around. It's real dry. But we got dumped on.
We got a dusting, which wasn't much of anything. We're supposed to get some more tonight. I mean, this is it. Winter's here, and it's going to start coming in out of the mountains now.
Also, yep. And then it goes past you and comes on down to us.
I was talking to our mutual buddy Mike Belcher this morning, and they got hit with an ice storm in Kentucky. They got snow. They got snow. And then the temps drop and it turned to rain. Oh. And I mean, it's like like he said, all the roads are just one black ice everywhere,
That is not good. No.
I'll take a foot of snow any day of the year, okay? But black ice, no thanks. That's scary stuff. And speaking of scary stuff, how's that for a segue? Time for our first bad joke of the show, which you have the honor of, my friend, so let it rip.
Young man wanted to invite his girlfriend to his family's farm, but he was embarrassed by the old-fashioned outdoor outhouse. He kept bickering with his dad about getting a modern one with indoor plumbing, but the old-timer just didn't want to give in. Out of sheer desperation, the young man slipped out one night and with a huge shove, pushed the entire outhouse down the hill. The solidly built privy was still intact when it reached the bottom. However, looking it over, he knew it would still be too damaged to winch up the hill. So the next morning at breakfast, his father asked him if he was the one who destroyed the outhouse. At the same time, he reminded his son of the story of George Washington and the cherry tree. Yes, Dad, sighed the boy. It was me. I'm glad you're so honest, said his father. As punishment, you have to start digging the pit for the new one immediately. But Dad, protested the boy, when George Washington admitted to chopping down the cherry tree, his father didn't punish him. Yes, you're right, said the father. But George's dad wasn't in the cherry tree when he cut it down.
Oh. All right, there's a picture I can't unsee. That's that's awful. Oh. All right.
Okay.
Hey, as is typical, since we've been doing this ever since we got the company rolling and doing these podcasts, we like to do a year wrap up in January of the titles that we got out last year. And as we were already talking about, last year proved to be the record-breaking year because as of a couple weeks ago, just before, a few days before the end of the year, New Year's,
like 2 days before the end of the year,
we got out book number 25. We put out 25 titles last year. It's insane.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But we did it. I think a part of that was the fact we started out the year, rocking and rolling. We had a bunch of books come in right away, and I couldn't keep up with it there for a little while. But then it kind of died down again a little bit, but it's stayed pretty steady this year. And on average, we've done between 18 and 24 a year.
Right.
And so this was a record breaker. We did that last book, and it put us over the top at 25. So,
yeah. So what we're going to do, obviously, as we do, is we're going to go through the 25 titles because we want to give credit and recognition to those creators who made that possible. All right. Each and every one of them was involved with each and every one of these titles. Obviously, okay, we're a two-man operation here, but the truth of the matter is you wouldn't have an Airship 27 if it wasn't for dozens of talented writers and artists.
Yep.
And let's not forget our proofreaders and Mike Vance, who does a lot of our promotion for us. So yeah, it's definitely a team effort.
Yep.
So, buddy, we're going to do like we always do. Since you did the joke, let me start it off, and we'll go back and forth, counting off all our 25 Airship 27 titles for 2024. And happily, at the start of the year, over a year ago now, we got rolling with Jezebel Johnson, number 9, Captain Johnson, by one of our favorite writers, Nancy Hansen. And this is her pirate saga. Again, nine volumes to date. She's already wrapping up volume 10 as you and I are speaking right now. And if anybody loves good pirate action adventure series, this is what you got to pick up. Believe me, all right? Because again, as we say every time we release one of these, Nancy's research is impeccable. All right. She has set this in a certain era, in a certain time, and it's authentic. All right. To the time, to the period, to the culture. It's remarkable. And Rob himself has the fun of illustrating, doing the interior illustrations for every single one of these books in the series. And he's done some absolutely gorgeous illustrations. And this one spotted another beautiful cover, his second for the series, by Canadian artist Ted Hammond. So we were off to a rocking start. And then came
Domino Lady Volume 5. And it features stories by Gene Moyers, George Takis, Gene Popa, Fred Adams Jr., and Warren Montgomery provided both the cover and all the interior illustrations. Before this, we had James Lyle was doing all the interiors, and we occasionally had Ted Hammond do the covers. But Warren, I think if I remember properly, he asked if he could do both the cover and the interiors on this one. And if it was up to me, he would be the regular on this particular book from now on. I don't know how many more of these we're going to do, how much we got in the pipeline yet for Domino Lady, but Ron would know that. I don't know.
Well, that's
all that stuff.
That's one of the items that I will be discussing at the end of our lineup. All right, of discussing the show about what's coming ahead.
About that.
Yeah, what's coming in 2025. And I want to point out a note that all of you loyal listeners will be hearing as we read this list. Warren's asking to do the cover became a norm pretty much more so this year than any other time. And a lot of our interior illustrators stepped up to the plate and said, I want to do a cover. And obviously that takes a load off Rob, it takes a load off me having to find 2 artists for the same book. That was another little element that helped speed the process of assembling books and getting them out there. So again, Warren did a super job with this, and we were really appreciative. All right, so now number 3 for 2024 was Apocalypse 1952 by Daryl Purcell. It's an alternate world novel where the U.S. did not enter World War II, and then later fell to the Nazi Germany in 1952. The interiors were by another new illustrator for Airship 27, Jeff Doberpool, whom Rob and I had the good pleasure of meeting at the Windy City Con last year. Right. And the author himself is an illustrator, and Darren provided the cover for it himself. Darren's a veteran of Vietnam. He's also a veteran news reporter, editor, and illustrator himself. So he's one of those kind of guys that when we get on a project, we're gonna mine it for everything it's worth.
Yeah, and we'll hear his name again a little bit later, Daryl Purcell. But next on the list is our foray into the romance aspect of
Yay!
pulp pulp adventure called Shadows of Love. It's by R.A. Jones. And if I remember right, R.A. brought this to you. You didn't ask him to do this. He brought it to you out of the blue, right? Because we've been talking about doing a romance anthology or a novel or something. And then here, R.A. shows up with one, comes in over the transom. So it's a sweeping romance adventure like those old Harlequin books. James Lyle provides both the gorgeous interior illustrations and the stunning cover. There's again an artist stepping up to the plate, doing both the interior and the cover art. So, and he did a bang up job. Beautiful cover.
As it turns out, over the weekend, I was meeting with some friends at the local comic shop, and we got to talking about Airship 27. And one of the ladies in the group said, "Well, pulp fiction, and she goes, well, isn't that just noir and crime fiction?" So me and my colleagues would try to make her understand that the pulps were a wide variety of books.
Yeah.
At which point I said, we even did a Harlequin romance novel this year. And she looked at me like, you're kidding. I said, oh, no. I said, this was a bodice ripper from day one. And thanks to RA. I mean, reading this thing, I had so much fun because every trope in an iconic, romance book is in this. All right. And he's such a great writer. I doubt seriously there's any genre that RA can't tackle and shine in. He's that good.
He's that good a writer. Yep.
Okay. So then one of our regulars who hadn't given us anything in a while, Tyler Offhammer, gives us Strange Adventures and introduces a new pulp hero.
Strange.
Yeah, strange. No, excuse me. You're right. Strong. Yeah. And I made that mistake several times because it goes back to the old DC comic title.
Yeah.
The comic book, Strange Adventures.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. So, excuse me, Tyler. Thanks for correcting. But our fifth title of the year was Strong Adventures and introduced pulp hero Harvey Strong and his supporting cast. And once again, artist Ron Hill shows up and gladly does the interiors and the cover. Boom, and away we go.
Yep. The next one on the list is I, Barbarian by Gary Levisi, who's done a number of different stories and anthologies and novels for us. It's a collection of sword and sorcery tales in the vein of Robert E. Howard, his Conan and his Bran McMorn and some of his other characters. And again, Ron Hill provides all the interiors and the cover. Stepped up again. He's a fast artist as well as he's a good artist and he's a fast artist. So that was another thing that helped us get so many books out, as we had Ron pumping them out.
I am so glad he was recommended to us by one of our writers. All right, and I got a hold of him, wrote him, introduced us, and he jumped on board. And I made mention of this in the previous podcast that his work reminds me a lot of Roy G. Krenkel, who used to do a lot of the Edgar Rice Burroughs covers and interior illustrations. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're tickled pink that Ron joined Airship 27 this past year. He's really been an asset to us. All right, now, number 7, all right, Towers of Metropolis, Volume 2. These are the prequel stories we do based on Fritz Lang's classic silent science fiction movie, which he released in 1927. And this volume featured stories by Dexter Fabi, Carson Demmons, Harding McFadden, and Gary Levisi. James Lyle provided both the interior illustrations and cover. And the kicker with this is, and it's one of the things that Rob and I have tried to do a lot with Airship 27, is obviously, okay, we're not rich, guys. We're a niche little market. We're just two guys who love pulps, action, adventure fiction, want to get our colleagues on board. And so basically the idea to me is, can we give our writers and artists things that they have never done before, will probably never likely do in the commercial market, right? And give them an opportunity to draw things that they like, that they have fun doing. And the whole idea with Towers of Metropolis was actually James came to me with the cover before anything else. He goes, "You're going to do any more Metropolis? I love that movie. I'd so love to get involved." So that was it. That launched volume 2. And he had already signed on to do cover and the illustrations. And while that was happening, 2 gentlemen from back east showed up in my email. And I'll get to that in a minute. We're going to skip a spot. But number 8 is back to Daryl Purcell, my friend.
Yep. Geezers. What a title for a book. Geezers by Daryl Purcell. It's a novel about a group of senior Vietnam veterans.
Oh, I know.
Take on yeah, you resemble that remark, don't you? Yeah. A group of senior Vietnam veterans who take on a bunch of subversive communist terrorists in their small California community. That's got to be. I haven't read this one, but it's got to be a hoot. Oh. Adam Shaw does the cover, while the author handles the interior illustrations. Who better than the guy that knows the story to actually illustrate the interiors? So
Adam's cover too was highly evocative. That's the one with the Purple Heart on the shelf with a picture of our heroes as young men taken in Nam while they were in service. That whole series is very dear to me, obviously for the reasons you pointed out as well. And we're going to be back to them in a minute.
Yes, the geezers make a return.
Oh yeah. So now we move on to number 9, and I was really happy about because it brought back a writer who was very instrumental when we started out and did so much work for us. And the book was Count Rochford versus the 7 Circles of Satan by our good pal Frank Childiner. All right, it's a Musketeer era Alexander Dumas adventure. All right, and John Gallagher.
It's a sequel to essentially the Three Musketeers,
right?
More or less, yeah.
And if you like that kind of fantasy adventure, believe me, it's a lot of fun. It's a great book. And our artist, first-time artist, again, working with us, was a British artist named John Gallagher. And he did the interior illustrations for this prior to getting sick, all right, which was really, really sad. Eventually, he's fine now with a lot of prayers and well wishes, but he had a rough year last year and was managed to get this out in another project for us, which we'll get to. But before wrapping this up, I turned to Rob last minute thing because we had the book assembled, we had the art, and asked Rob to do the cover, and Rob delivered one of my favorite covers. I absolutely love it. It's absolutely gorgeous.
All right. And next on the list, our old pal, Barry Baskerville, the young Sherlock Holmes enthusiast. It's Barry Baskerville and the Stolen Car by Richard Kellogg. This is the 9th children's book featuring Barry Baskerville, the boy detective, with all the art by Gary Cato. He did the cover and the interior. Very colorful book. It's in a special format. It's 8.5 by 8.5. This is the 9th one in that series. Just a really fun book. If you're a fan of Sherlock Holmes, you should be a fan of Barry Baskerville as well. The book is written obviously for children, but adults can get stuff out of it too. Because I read every one of these because it comes across because I figure out where the illustrations go and then send that off to Gary. And each and every one of these has been a real joy to read. A lot of fun. It'd be great to sit down with children or grandchildren and read these books to them.
There you go. That was going to be my recommendation. I mean, literally, if you're a father and you have kids in the 8 to 10 age group or a grandfather, all right, and you want to get them hooked on reading and enjoying it, these are great characters. Barry's a lot of fun, all right, running around with his little deerskin cap on, right, his sidekick dog, solving these mysteries. They're enjoyable, they're fun, they're I think educational, and who knows how many kids reading these things, Rob, will get the reading bug, and then and change the course of their life, all right. So, and then we do the exact polar shift, because that's what Airship27 is all about. We go from young Barry Baskerville to the Sheriff of Hell. Number 11 was a weird, trust me, a weird Western by Carson Demons. And it basically dealt with a foppish dandy who shows up in this town in Arizona called Hell. And by this bizarre series of events, ends up becoming the sheriff. And when the bad guys try to do away with him and kill him, somehow or other, he manages to come out on top. All right. It's a strange book, believe me. It's a lot of fun and unusual. And that's what I look for all the time.
Yeah, and I think I didn't actually read the whole book, but assembling it and inserting the illustrations, I would read passages through it, and I'm going, "There's hints here. Is this sheriff? Is he a cult? Is he for real? I mean, is he just a lucky SOB, or how is all this happening?"
Right.
So there's that question in the background.
Wisely pulls you through the whole novel with these little hints and teases and whatever. All right. My good neighbor friend Sam Salas jumped on board to do the interior illustrations. He had a blast with this book. And again, we went and got, stalwart Adam Shaw to do the cover, which is really stunning. It's the sheriff standing on the front porch of the saloon, and there's this red tint on this street behind him, which is so fitting to the concept and everything else. Brilliant. All right. Okay, so we didn't go too far afield from Hell with the next book, number 12, my friend.
So the next one is The Devil You Know by Glenn Held. It's a terrific pulp adventure teaming up classic heroes against Dr. Satan. Now, let's see if I can remember who all's in it. It's Ravenwood, the guy that goes up against, what is his name?
Ascot Keene,
thank you. And then the Secret Agent X is in there. And then General Shaw, or is it Major Shaw? Okay, so I can't remember them. But anyway, but there's like 4 or 5 guys that are going up against Dr. Satan. And there's some sort of conspiracy going on as well. It's been almost a year since I read this book, so I don't remember it all that well. But I had a blast drawing it, and I ended up doing the illustration for the cover as well. And everyone has patted me on the back for that one, because it ended up being kind of a stunning thing, because it's essentially got it's one of those floating head type of things with Dr. Satan in the background and all the team up characters standing in front of him. And he's got this evil look on his face. So it was a lot of fun to do.
Oh no, it blew everyone away when you did it. All right. I mean, aside from the fact that it's a gorgeous drawing. All right. It sings pulp. It's totally pulp. It's what you'd have seen on a kiosk in New York in 1935. All right. I mean, it literally jumps out at you, which is what you want a pulp cover to do in the first place. All right.
Yep.
And I can remember when we promoted that. All right. I mean, folks just went, I have to believe, okay, because Glenn was new to us. This was his first book with us. I don't think he had that much of an audience, all right? He does now, thanks to this cover. I think a lot of people bought this book, Rob, because of your cover. I'll go to my grave knowing that, all right?
Well, so, yes, that's the job of a cover artist, to get people to go, "Ooh, what's this?" and pick it up and look at it. So, I was inspired. It was a great, fun book, and because it had one of my favorite characters. Secret Agent X was in it, and the one I forgot is Ravenwood, which we'll get to again here in just a second. But yeah, it's Ravenwood, Secret Agent X, and
Ascot
it was just a lot of fun.
Who was Satan's primary nemesis. So Glenn wants to do a sequel, and I told him anytime. Bring it on. Bring it on. All right. So we followed that. We followed that with number 13, which was volume 5 of our Ravenwood
13 appropriately.
Mystery. Yeah, I mean, falls into place. All right. And Ravenwood is one of those backup features that first was born in the pulps, and I believe was a backup feature in Secret Agent X magazine.
believe you're
And
right.
there were
Yeah.
only a handful of stories of his. I mean, 8 or 9 total, I think. And we've so far outdistanced that now with our anthologies. So what do you have with Stepson of Mystery Volume 5? Stories by Dexter Fabi, Michael Housel, Carson Demons, and then Sam Salas, God bless him, does the interior illustrations, and our good buddy Adam Shaw gives us another dynamite cover. So it's a great entry into the Ravenwood series.
Okay, and following that up, number 14, Pulp Mythology, Volume 3. And this one features stories by Teal James Glenn, Eric Esquivel, Harding McFadden, and Iris Hawken, and Elizabeth Freeman. Artist Ron Hill stepped up to the plate again and gave us both the interiors and the cover of this one. And this is kind of a fun book. It allows our writers to jump into the mythology pool and pull up characters and play with them. I'm not, having worked on the interior of this one, I don't remember who the characters were in this one. Do you remember who was in this one, Ron?
It's almost impossible to forget Eric's story, which I immediately after reading gave the cover spot, and Ron Hill did such a great job.
Oh, yes.
That was John Henry fighting vampires. The steel driving man taking
beating
on
him up
blood
with his
suckers.
hammer. Yeah.
I mean, and then on top of that we had Johnny Appleseed shows up.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
So the mythology series, it ends up just being a hoot for us because we never know which mythologies, and we've had Chinese characters from Chinese mythology, we've had Russian figures from Russian mythology. So yeah, it's like an adult fairy tale Brothers Grimm kind of atmosphere that we try to get with this, and it works rather well. All right, so then number 15 saw the return of my colleagues, Geezers 2. Yeah, you can't kill those guys, what can I say? But once again, Daryl Purcell, all right, this time does the interiors, and again, as he did with the first one, but he brings back the same cast, all right? These old Army buddies, the majority of which live in a senior facility in Southern California, all right, and are forever getting in trouble, all right, because that's who they are, all right? And once again, I went to Adam Shaw again and basically gave Adam some suggestions for a cover, all right? Again, like I said, loving the one he did for Geezers number 1. I wanted to see if he could do an actual cover dealing with guys in combat, all right, and how he would handle that. Well, boy, did he surprise me, all right, into one of the most beautiful, inspiring, thought-provoking covers that I have ever seen on a book, all right? And you have to imagine a veteran, an old veteran, he's walking past your line of vision, and he's got his old Army jacket on with patches on and a baseball cap, right? But behind him is the sky and clouds, thick white clouds, and shaped in those clouds are combat soldiers rushing into combat. It just blew me away. All right. I mean, look, the thing about if you loyal airmen have veterans in your family, or you yourselves are veterans, or whatever, right? And especially if you've ever had the experience of being in a war zone, all right? Literally, I think that one of the common threads amongst most veterans that I meet every day in my life, and it's true for me, is that you're never too far away from thoughts of all those guys who didn't come back. All right, it's like it's what haunts you the rest of your life. All right, always remember Spielberg's The End of Saving Private Ryan, when the old vet falls down in front of the captain's tombstone in France, right? And he looks at his wife almost in tears and saying, "I've been a good man, haven't I? I've lived a good life." All right, and like I said, if you go to a war zone and you are blessed and you come home, that others, your fellow brothers and whatever, didn't come home.
They paid the ultimate price for your freedom to come home.
Right. And so
That's what it comes down to.
the least we can do is just remember them. That's all. Just remember.
Respect and remember them. Yes.
Yep. Yep. And that's what Daryl does with these stories. And that's why that cover just touched my heart. And I'm so glad we published that. So there you go. All right.
Next one.
Number 16, Rob.
Yep. We're moving back to Metropolis. This one is a novel. It's a Metropolis, if I can say it right, Metropolis Resurrection, a brilliant prequel novel by Charles Santino and Michael Panuche. All the illustrations and cover are by James Lyle. As we mentioned earlier, he's a huge fan of Metropolis, the movie. And the book, this was such an impressive one that this is the first, this is the first hardback we've done. It's the second hardback book, but we're very choosy about which books we put into hardback. But this is one of them because it was such a great piece of work by James Lyle on the cover, and it's worth the extra to put it in hardback as well as paperback.
And to go back to that earlier, this all came about when James was doing the interiors for Towers of Metropolis Volume 2 and having the time of his life. And here I am getting this manuscript from Michael and Charles. And I'm reading and editing this, right? Till I realized, I went, whoa. And I got back to James. He hadn't even finished doing the illustrations for the anthology. And I said, you're not going to believe this, buddy, but I just got a Metropolis novel that blew my socks off, reading it. I said, you want in? And there was never a question. He fired back. Said,
he said, heck yeah.
Yeah, and boy, did he deliver? Okay, enough so that we're at that point. We'll talk about it a little later after we finish this. But I'm nominating this for both novel of the year and cover of the year, hands down. Piece of paper that's happening. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So number 17, Rob,
is I just did the previous one.
Okay.
I did Metropolis. So it's your turn.
It's my turn. And number 17 was Warrior of Rigel, all right, by Gary Lavisi. And this is a fast-paced sword and planet adventure, much in the vein of Edgar Rice Burroughs. So again, keeping that in mind and what he'd done with T.L. James Glenn's Barbarian books and Gary's previous books, I went back to Ron Hill, and sure enough, he joined on doing all the artwork, the cover and the illustrations as well. So, he's pretty much become our go-to guy when it comes to sword and sorcery or sword and planet. And Sword of Rigel is a really, really good novel. It's an introductory novel to the setting and the concepts. And I could easily foresee Gary doing sequels if it ever, strikes his fancy, because I think it would deserve it. It's a good book. All right. And now a biggie.
This one has been in the works for years. This is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, Volume 20. This is our super special volume suggested by writer Ian Watson. The lead story is his, The Strand Magazine Murders. The idea of that story propelled me to produce 2 formal editions besides our regular Kindle edition. First, we have our usual paperback edition, and then a second in a larger size of the magazine itself. The volume also includes stories by Ray Lovato, Michael Black, and T.L. James Glenn. And in your writing here, you neglected, we also did a hardback version of this as well.
That's right.
So it's actually got every possibility we could do except for audiobook, and that may come soon. That we've done all those kinds of versions of this particular book. And man, since I wanted to do it to look like the actual magazine, it took a lot of illustrations, because if you pick up facsimiles of the old Strand magazine, there are illustrations on every page, from little tiny, from ads to little spot illustrations throughout this thing. So at the prompting of Ian Watson, he said, he tapped his daughter to go and look at our old all the previous editions of Consulting Detective and see if maybe we could swipe images from some of the previous books, and we did some of that. But I still had to come up with a lot more than usual brand new illustrations for this thing to go along with the stories that were inside of it. So, but it was a labor of love. It was a lot of fun to do. It took a long time to put it together, but we all wanted it to be really special. So I pulled out all the stops, even made the cover look like the old Strand magazine.
Yeah.
Emphasizing the title of the story, The Strand Magazine Murders. I put that in big type to make it look like that was the title of so it was like the magazine, but it's not. It's the title of the story. But this one was a lot of fun to do. And if you Sherlock Holmes fans out there have not glommed onto this one yet, the stories are great too. But I had a lot of fun doing the illustrations for it as well. Ian Watson knocked it out of the park as he usually does. What a great story he made with the Strand magazine work.
That was the highlight. That was definitely the highlight of 2024 as far as I'm concerned, amongst all the great stuff we put out. All right, so then we go number 19, and that's The Book Hunter's Disciple by Barbara Duran. Now, this is the second in this Chinese fantasy series by Barbara. Gary Carter provides the black and white interior illustrations, and another Coloradan pal of mine, Guy Davis, did the fanciful color cover. And I got to tell you, I mean, I admit, until reading Barbara's books, I was pretty much a novice as far as Chinese fantasy and magic. All right,
same here. Yeah,
it being her heritage or her lineage. All right, I mean, this stuff is colorful, it's fun, it's intriguing. All right, reading one of her books, like I said, is an education in and of itself, aside from being a good adventure read. So yeah, if you're ever interested in different, fantasies and how the other parts of the world see fantasy, I recommend this series highly. All right, buddy, number 20.
Okay, next is Jungle Tales Volume 3 featuring Kygor, Jungle Lord. So it features stories by Curtis Fernland, Carson Demmons, and I'm going to mess up this name, but I'm going to try it anyway. Terry was your I'm not even going to try it. It's Wijesuria. I have no idea how to pronounce that. And Bob Madison. Artist John Gallagher did the interior illustrations, and Ted Hammond knocked it out of the park again with that gorgeous cover. Do you have any idea how to pronounce that?
Wijesuria. Wijesuria. That's what I would say. Wijesuria.
Okay, so someone will correct us if we've gotten it wrong.
Sure.
But yeah, I have. That's completely out of my wheelhouse. I haven't run into any human beings with that kind of name. So I apologize for messing it up, but it's outside my wheelhouse, outside my experience.
This one was again a fun thing. I mean, Jungle Tales and jungle characters have been a staple.
Oh yeah, I love Tarzan. I'm a big Tarzan fan.
And so and Kygor was always a pulp ripoff of Tarzan. Everybody knew that going in. Okay, so putting this volume together, I mean, a couple of things I wanted to mention was Curtis Fernland, who's a veteran writer for New Pulps, came to me and said, "Hey, I've got a female jungle girl. I think it was Jana of the Jungle, whatever.
Jenna of the Jungle.
Yeah, can I use that?" I said, "By all means, bring it on board." So we get to debut her appearance. All right. And who knows if that'll lead to a series or future sequel stories. All right. And of course, we mentioned the fact that the artist in this one, again, was our British pal, John Gallagher. And this got slowed up a great deal because that's when John got sick. And I mean, I never realized until I got an email from him basically saying, I may not make it. And if I don't, I'm sorry, I can't finish this project. And to read that was, like a wake. I was like
that was a
cold
stunner.
slap of, water in my face. And Bo Robb and I wrote to him, told, not worry about illustrations or books or nothing. Just take care of himself. Prayers, well wishes, muster his, his will to live. And thank the good Lord, it came to pass. He survived. He's recovering. He's home. He's doing well. And I'm kind of hoping that as this year progresses, there's one particular book I'd really like John to look at by our old friend Fred Adams. But I've already told John I'm not going to pester him when he thinks he's got the strength enough and the itch to get back to drawing. Give me a holler because I'm saving that one for him. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
All right.
Next.
My turn, right?
Yep. Right.
Okay. Number 21, Falco and Company by Wayne Carey, a new international spy thriller, very reminiscent of Mission Impossible, that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
Rob provided both the interior illustrations and the cover. And this is a book that Wayne has used these characters in the past with other stories and whatever, but he had never had what we consider the origin of Falco and Company, and that was this novel. And when we ran into him almost over 2 years ago now at Pittsburgh, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when we got to talking about this one particular book. And I said, if you give it to me, it's Rob's, okay? Because we're both huge fans of how this guy writes, okay? And his political thrillers are great. So Rob took it over and, of course, made it shine, all right? It's a great book with great art. And again, if you like modern spy thrillers, all right? Falco
if you like heist stories, you know, it's that kind of book. It's that kind of story. It's a heist story, more or less.
Right. And like Mission Impossible, it's the team that he assembles. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And they're fascinating characters and watching them work together, you know, the little dynamics between them, etc. It's really a classic spy book. All right, buddy. Number 22.
So, Lance Starr, Cold Snap. This is a novel of our pulp nod to airplane flying aviators of the 1930s. This is Lance Starr, and it's by Bobby Nash. It's a full-length Lance Starr novel with interior illustrations by Clayton Merwin. And I can't remember whether Clayton tried the cover and it didn't. I remember now. He tried the cover and it didn't look cold enough. It did, because the story's is set during some cold weather. So Ron tapped me to try and. So I used essentially what Clayton had done, but I set it a little bit differently, and I figured out a way to put falling snow in the image so it looked really cold. And I think I pulled it off pretty well. Bobby was really happy with it. Ron was happy with the cover. And I thought it turned out pretty well. But again, the basic design was Clayton's, but I just tried to take it the next step.
I mean, a Reader's Digest, real quick encapsulation. The whole idea is when we first started Airship 27, I definitely wanted an aviation hero, right? Because I mean, the pulps have people like Bucky Barnes, and I can name a slew of others, all right, that were aviation heroes, had their own pulp magazines or whatever. So I and a couple other writers got to kick me around. Well, let's make up our own. Well, I thought it would be fun if I made a full hero, a bogus pulp hero named Lance Starr Sky Ranger. And I created his team, right? The Sky Rangers, and 5 or 6 of his assistants and this and that in their field out in Long Island and this and that, taking place during, World War II and all, and the World War I started World War II, that whole period, okay? Well, the thing is, then I wrote up a phony history. And when we put out the first anthology, because I sent the Bible out to people, Bobby jumped on, so did a bunch of others, all right, of our regulars to do the first couple of anthologies. We put out a phony history about a Canadian pulp publisher in the 1930s who had created Lance Starr, all right? And we just let it out there to see if people would, reel them in, get up. Everybody, all the guys in those first few anthologies were in the know. And it was a joke. We weren't trying to, be mean-spirited about it, but we just thought, can we create a fake pulp hero from the golden age of the pulps? Well, sure enough, you knew we had when a couple of anthologies into it, right? We get a letter from one of our readers who picked it up, and he said he was reading it, and his father, who's like a World War II veteran, said, "Oh, I remember reading those when I was a kid." And I went, "Yes, we did it." So
there was even a photoshopped photo of a bunch of guys that we put in there.
We put our heads on. I had a bomber crew with all the writers.
And it had Ron's head. It had, I forget who all was in there. I think Bobby Nash was there.
Bob Nash was there. It was insane. It was absolutely insane. So then what happens is after doing, I think, 2 or 3 or 4 anthologies, it was one of those kind of cases where, like, Ian Watson had always been a part of Sherlock Holmes and has been in every Sherlock Holmes. Well, Bobby had an affinity for the character and wrote some of the best short story, Bob. So way back then, I realized Airship 27 was getting launched. I was getting caught up with my Captain Hazard, my Brother Bones project. And so one day I just wrote Bobby out of the blue and I said, "You want Lance?" And literally said it. "You want him? If you do, then I'm telling you right now, he's your character." Okay. If we do anthologies, that's one thing, but you can do whatever you want with him. As far as I'm concerned, as of now, if you want him. Bobby was taken aback, got back and said, "Thanks, definitely." To the point which led to him doing a Landstar comic book.
Yeah.
Other Landstar short stories. He teamed up Landstar with Charles Millhouse's Captain Hockland. And they did a story together in a Hockland anthology where he meets Landstar, to the point where we were so happy with how Bobby was picking up the ball and continuing this, that we got together and put together all his previous Landstar stories and did a Kindle version, Bobby Nash Landstar stories, all right, which I'm definitely going to segue into issue number 23 of our release. After releasing Cold Snap, Bobby came to you and me and said, "Well, look, we've got the novel out. Can we take the Kindle book collection and put it in print?" And that's what we did. And so it was a 1-2 punch. Number 22 for the year was Landstar Cold Snap. Number 23 was finally putting the Kindle-only version, The Adventures of Landstar by Bobby Nash, into print. And they're both available on Amazon right now as we talk. And thanks, Bobby, because you've taken a fun aviation hero and done some really great things with him.
Yep.
There you go.
Then, next on the list, number 24 in the countdown is Dan Fowler, G-Man, and this is volume 4. It features 2 stories by Fred Adams Jr. with interior illustrations by Sam Salas and a colorful cover by Michael Youngblood. In fact, Michael gave us 2 versions of it, and I think Dan Fowler had a blue suit in one of the images, and he had a brown suit in the other image. So I just took one. I forget which one I used. I think it was the blue, but I can't remember off the top of my head without seeing it. But I picked that one to actually make the cover with.
All right.
But, more of Dan Fowler, G-Man.
Yeah, good stuff, fun stuff. Fred's such a great writer. All right. And then, and then within a week, because Rob didn't want to do them day after the other, but we had it in. And number 25, our last release, broke the record, Moon Man Volume 3, the last book of 2024, and it featured stories of this classic pulp character by Kevin Findlay, David No, and Jeremy Lamastus. The interior art was by Jeff Doberpool again, and Ted Hammond delivered his stunning cover. All right. And that was it. Boom. I mean, the Moon Man is Steve Thatcher. He's a Robin Hood who works out of a fictional city called Great City, and is tired of seeing the rich get rich during the Depression and the poor get poorer with no place to go, nothing to eat, blah, blah, blah. And so he becomes a modern day Robin Hood. And he puts on the weirdest thing in the world, this one-way fish bowl over his head made out of Argus. Never mind, how can he breathe in that thing? It's pulp. We don't even give it a second thought. And he robs from the rich and gives to the poor. It's just pulpish. It's what pulps are all about. And this was what we were just talking about this. This was what, volume 3 we did of the Moon Man?
Yeah,
it was volume 3. We'd already done 2 previous volumes. And the minute we had it, we had one of our fans write and wanted to know if they could pick up the other two Moon Man books. And you replied to them. And
they are still available. They're still available as either Kindle or paperback at Amazon. If you want to get a direct link, go straight to Airship27 hangar, hangar.com, and then just click on the link to Moon Man. There's on the left hand column. There's a listing for every either series we've got or a character. Click on the link, Moon Man link, and it'll take you right down to our page where the Moon Man stuff is listed. And each one of them has a link to either the Kindle version or the Amazon version, or you can even buy your $3 PDF if you don't mind reading it on your Kindle or your iPad. So you can get it that way. That's probably the least expensive way to get it. But if you're like me, you prefer to sit and read the actual paperback book. Put that in your hands. So there you go.
Yeah. All right. 25 books. Congratulations, amigo. Definitely. All right. So, look, I tell you what, we've got a little paragraph here. What to look forward to. I'll let you read that. And then I'm gonna give you and our loyal airmen a couple of little surprises.
Oh, yeah. He hasn't told me about this, folks. So this is it is a surprise. Okay, what to look forward to. So coming up, Ron Hill is doing illustrations for a brand new Altiva Chronicles book from James Teal Glenn, with Ron Hill doing the artwork. Shannon Hall is wrapping up his art on the newest Masked Rider Tales of the Wild West, Volume 4, and Ed Cato continues to work on the second New Adventures of the Musketeers. Keeping in mind, this is our last year of accepting submissions. We talked about this last time, if I remember correctly, that 2025 is the last year we're going to be accepting submissions. Now, whatever we get in over the transom this year, we're going to try and get out in 2025 and 2026, and some of it might spill over into 2027. And we've gotten a few questions online about this, and we got a couple of emails as well. So maybe we might want to go into the details of that. I don't know if you do that before you do your surprise or well,
I mean, what? Yeah. The thing is we got a few emails. Some people panicking a little bit. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like we were going to vanish. Like we were going to vanish overnight. Okay.
No.
So one of the things that we had to assure all our creators, all right, all our writers and artists, that we weren't going to leave anybody in the lurch. All right. I mean, I've got a queue full of unfinished books. All right. So we're definitely going to be back here in 2026, like you said, wrapping those up. But the thing is, we had to stop the incoming flow, because then it would never stop. So the idea was, okay, 2025, you have until December 31st. And I told one of our writers that, because he's got 2 manuscripts he wants us to read. One's almost done. I should be getting it in another week or 2, and they're working on the third one. And that's Paul Landry and Jason Clark. And they want to do sequels to their Return of the Crimson Howl. Well, my answer to both of them was, look, I says, if you send me a manuscript on December 31st, you made the deadline. This is what we're telling you. Okay, I'm true to my word. All right. So again, please, people, don't panic. All right. And again, this is like Rob has said it several times. This is a one-on-one experience that we're going to look at each individual case. So after the year, if one of you is a loyal Airship 27 creator, that you've been with us from the start, blah, 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 and you have something that you just want us to have, then Rob and I will listen. We'll let you get up there and give you a pitch. We're not just going to categorically close the door on people. Okay, that's not us. It's never been us.
And we're not going to shut the doors at the end of 2026 either. There are other things that Ron and I want to do, but I know for a fact that I want to continue doing the consulting detective series with Sherlock Holmes. I want to keep doing that. But there are projects that we want to do, and we both want to just kind of pull back a little bit. We're not spring chickens anymore, and pumping these out every month is Plus, I'm getting my fingers into other things. I'm doing some comic book work, a little more of that than I've been doing in the past, and that's something I really want to get into. So I want to spend more time doing that. Ron's got all his comic book projects. He's got so many irons in the fire. I don't know how he keeps track of it all.
Well, but, and aside from all this, okay, what you're talking about is I have a novel that I want to write that I've been putting off for 5-6 years now. All right. And every time I think I've got the research done and I think I can start working on it, we get busy. All right. Whether it's a comic book work or Airship 27. And again, I don't know how much time I've got left on terra firma. Okay. It's one of those things. So I'd like to have an opportunity to at least give that novel a try someday. So here's the thing. Don't panic. Stick with us. Okay. Watch how this all falls apart. Be on our side. We need all the good wishes and support you people have given us in the past. Don't stop giving it to us now. And the two things I wanted to talk about is that in closing up shop, all right, we have all these different series. And I'm at that point where I understand we have to end the series. Okay. So here's the idea. Right now, I have got volume 6 of Domino Lady finished as far as 4 stories. All right. But I hadn't gotten an art thing put together. And then this past week, out of the blue, one of our dear friends and writers, Gene Moyers, who loves Domino Lady and done a bunch of them. And we've done a Domino Lady Kindle collection with Gene, right? Gene sends me another Domino Lady story. Ron, please start at volume 7. Okay.
Well, this is what we're talking about, folks.
Yeah, all right. Okay. So here we go, right? So I sat there that day, right? And I'm thinking about it. And then I went, all right, I'm now going to take control. I literally wrote to 3 other writers, and I won't mention their names here right now. You'll eventually see it. But I wrote to 3 other writers who have been stalwart contributors to us, people that have helped us in a pinch. And I wrote to the 3 of them and said, would you give me a Domino Lady story this year? Because that'll wrap up volume 7. And here's the thing, okay? Now I've got the art set. I've got both volumes set. I went back to James Lyle, who started this with us. We talked about this before Warren came on, whatever, right? But here's the thing. I always loved James' work in the interiors. He never done a cover. So I went to James and I said, James, I'm looking at closing out the Domino Lady series with volumes 6 and 7. Would you be willing to come on board, give me your commitment that you will illustrate both those volumes? And that takes such a monkey off my back, all right? Well, sure enough, James got back to me a couple days later. This is all around the New Year's, and he goes, yeah, I've been wanting to get back to her. I love her. She's a great character.
Okay.
So, all right. So he signs on, but then he does what I expected. He goes, is there any chance I could do the covers? And I was set. I wrote back. I said, it's yours. You got it. So so what people are going to learn, I'm going to send out in the newsletter eventually. And that was one of the things I wanted to share with you and our loyal, we're going to do 2 more volumes of Domino Lady this year. Please do not send me any other Domino Lady stories. That's it. Folks. That will be the end of the series.
But that's all, folks.
That's it. Okay. And that will be 7 Domino Lady books that we'll have put out. All right. And then there's another book that we're going to get out this year. Right now, it's a standalone book. All right. We had talked about this, you and I, a while back, and we never made it public. But right now, I'm going to make part of it public, not completely, but you'll get it, buddy. All right. In the course of his life, perhaps the greatest pulp writer of all times, and people might argue this, but I believe it was Edgar Rice Burroughs. And in the course of his lifetime, he wrote so many books and stories and whatever, all right? And some of those have now fallen into public domain.
Yes. Yeah, the first 2 Tarzan books are in public domain that I know of, yeah.
Right. The first 3 Martian books are, all right, okay. Well, he did one book that was amongst dozens that he got out there and that he never continued or developed any further. All right. McFadden is a huge fan of this particular book, which is public domain. Hardin came to us maybe 2 years ago and had written a sequel to it. I had hoped maybe that we could reprint it, but literally what's happened is time has just run away with us. And the other day I kept thinking about Hardin's been a soul of patience, waiting and waiting and waiting, because he's got this great book, all right? To the effect that finally I said, you know what, this is crazy. I'm never going to have a chance to, rewrite, or scan or whatever I need to do for the original Burroughs book. All right. No, we're just going to go in and publish the sequel to an Edgar Rice Burroughs adventure novel this year. All right. And people will know more about it comes together. I definitely want you on board to do the interior illustrations, because it'll be the first time you get to work with Edgar Rice Burroughs and his work. And I want that to happen. Yep. Okay. Anything else I can say about that? There isn't all that much, like I said, except what I did was I went back to Hardin and said, Hardin, I said, number one, I can't thank you enough for being patient with us. Okay. I said, I'm changing plans. I'm not making you wait any longer. I want to publish this book. Here's the kicker. Would you write a recap of what happened in Burroughs' book as to why this is happening now? And he did. Over the New Year's weekend, he wrote me a 2 or 3 page recap of what's come before, which is now in front of his novel. And then
so that'd be like the preface, yeah.
Right. So you know where you're at, who the characters are, and where you're going. And I've just today started reading and editing it, and I am wicked excited because we're going to have this book out, and it's basically going to have a title that says blah, 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 all right? The sequel to So-and-so by Edgar Rice Burroughs, an Airship 27 book, and that's coming out this year. God willing.
Okay.
And that was my second big surprise. All right. So there you go. All right. I mean, when you can fit it into your schedule and stuff like that, and I'm just letting people know, there's a lot on both our plates. Like you said, the comic work for me is getting out there and overwhelming. So yeah, there comes a point where you need to slow down. You need to just sit back and enjoy it even a little more, never mind, exactly. It's fun, but okay. We'll just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to get off the merry-go-round or you'll get sick.
Slow
the merry-go-round down.
I tease Valerie, she'd probably find me in this chair someday, just gone. All right. Yeah, in the middle of a story, right? That's it. Yeah. That's it. The one that didn't get finished. Yeah. All right. And that's pretty much it. Unless you've got something else you want to add or comment on.
No, I think one of the questions I think was, we've answered it, but I want to emphasize it, is that we're not stopping publishing even after 2026. We're still going to publish some of our own stuff. And again, if somebody comes to us with a project that makes us go, wow, we will probably do that as well. We're definitely going to continue as long as we keep getting good stories across the transom. And we've got some great writers doing them for the consulting detective books. We'll keep doing that. That's something I want to continue to do. I could see us maybe still doing some mystery men and women. I mean, we haven't talked about that, but that's probably one of our flagship books is Mystery Men and Women. So we might still be doing some of those. Anyone who's had written stories in our anthologies, and they've written 4 of them now, we will collect those into it and put it in a Kindle version. Or if they want, we'll put it into a paperback version like we did for Bobby's book on the Lance Starr. We'll be doing things like that. We're not done. We're not shutting the doors. The hangar is still going to be open. We're still going to fly every once in a while. We're just not going to make as many sorties as we were making before. So yeah, we'll be on special missions. So that's what we're going to be doing with the Airship.
All right. Okay. So now,
So I
that
kept
joke.
putting it off, folks, but
Yeah.
here we go. We got to
That
get
joke.
there.
And this, you know this one already because I've told you this already. You know
Okay,
this one,
well,
but it was a piece I found on Facebook, and it's more about riddles than anything else. But I liked it. I thought it was wicked funny, and I shared it with family over the holiday, and they got a kick out of it. All right. So basically, here's the setup. All right. Forrest Gump dies and ends up in heaven. And he's coming out of the clouds, and there's the pearly gates with St. Peter. And St. Peter recognizes Forrest. So good to see you here, he says. So he said, do you think you belong here, Forrest? Forrest goes, well, I think I've led a good life, St. Peter. I think I belong in heaven. Well, St. Peter goes, you know what? He goes, if you really do, if you have a good soul, then you should be able to answer these 3 questions that I ask people, right? Oh, I got to take a test. I don't like tests. Well, it's only 3 questions for us, all right? The first one is, how many days in the week start with the letter T? The second one is, how many seconds in a year? And the last one is, what's God's name? Forrest starts to laugh. Oh, heck, he says, I didn't know they were going to be easy questions. St. Peter looks at him as easy. He said, oh, yeah. He said, those are really easy. So what about the first one? How many days in the week start with the letter T? Oh, today and tomorrow. St. Peter looks at him and goes, oh, that's not quite the answer I was looking for us, but it works. I mean, it's legit. I'll give you credit for that. Now, this is the tough one for us. I mean, really, how many seconds in a year? Again, that's easy, 12. How do you get 12? 12th of January, 12th of February, 12th. Okay.
or second of each month. Yeah.
Right.
There's 12 seconds in the month.
Yeah. All right. So again, St. Peter says, what can I do? He says, all right, Forrest, last one. And he goes, I get a hunch you're going to solve this one too, but what's God's name? Andy. Andy? Where do you get Andy? Well, Mama used to take me to church every Sunday, and we'd all sing with the choir. And he walks with me, and he sings with me. And...
I've heard it before, and it's still funny.
Yeah,
oh my.
I love you, sir. I really, really love you. I know he has a sense of humor, Rob. The good Lord has a great sense of humor.
He must. He must.
Oh, yeah. He put me on this world, so he's got to have a sense of humor. And there you go, Loyal Airman. Hey, we've taken up another solid hour of your life.
Hour this time, yeah.
Oh, and hey, thanks so much. Thanks so much for tuning in and supporting everything we do. We really, truly appreciate it. We couldn't do this without you guys and gals. So thanks so much. Rob, I think we're all set to sign out.
All right. Well, as always, this is Chief Engineer Rob Davis signing off.
And Captain Ron Portier says, down short.
Come take a trip in my airship and we'll visit the man in the moon. Will the audience please join me in whistling the chorus?